Hi, my name's Lizzie. I'm in Bristol at my studio and I'm going to show you now the absolute most basic building block of sewing repair that I think that everybody needs to be able to do, and that is to be able to replace a button that has fallen off. That might be a button from a shirt, from a blouse, from the top of a skirt, from a pair of trousers. Losing a button is absolutely not a reason to dismiss a piece of clothing out of your wardrobe. So I'm going to show you how to replace a button, and I think this is something that absolutely everyone can do. All I need is some thread, some snips or scissors, and a sewing needle. Really, really simple. This is the kind of kit you could pick up in any corner shop. So let's have a look at the shirt. Really lovely, amazing print. You would never find anything this fun again like this. It's absolutely the right thing to do to put the button back onto it. So we've got a button that's actually missing from the front. Now, it fell off long ago and I can't match exactly the buttons that are down the front. So what I'm going to do is a little trick, is I'm actually going to take a button off the cuff and I'm going to use that on the front of the shirt, and then we can source another button to redo the cuff where it's going to be less obvious. So I'm just going to take that button off, quick snip, and we've got our button. Now buttons either have usually 2 or 4 holes in the middle of them. This one has got 2 holes. The next thing to do is to work out exactly where I need to sew this button onto. I'm going to do the buttons above it up just so I can see how it falls. And here we are, I can see where the button should have gone, and actually there's still a mark where it's come off. I'm just going to pop a pin in there just to mark it, just to make sure it's really obvious where this button needs to be sewn back on. And you need to make sure that the button stand on the inside is nice and flat. There we go. So that pin marks the spot where this button needs to be sewn on. Next thing we need to do is get the thread ready. So I'm going to take kind of an arm width apart like this. I'm going to snip it. And I'm going to do a double thread. So I'm pulling the 2 lengths of thread down to the same length. And when they're at the same length there, I'm going to do a little knot. It's important that this knot stays tight because this is what's going to anchor the thread into the clothes. Just trim off any loose bits from your knot. And then I'm going to go in where my pin marks where my button needs to go. And I'm going to just do a loop through on the top side with my thread. And I'm just going to do a couple, and that's just going to secure my thread in. Take my button, place it in position with using one hand, and we're going to go up through one of the holes like that and down through the other one, and that first stitch will hold the button in position. Now that pretty much is as technical as it gets. What we need to do now is we just need to do a few more stitches through the button, so coming up through one of the holes, pulling it tight and dropping it back down through the other hole. Let's do that. Because we've got a double thread, I think 3 or 4 times is more than enough. So again, one more time, we're going to go up through the hole, like that, and drop it back down. So to finish it off, I'm going to take my thread from the underside back onto the top side. I like to run the thread around the underside of the button a couple of times just to tidy up anything underneath the button. Give it a tight pull, turn it over, and then all we need to do is finish it off. So needle goes in, thread comes through, and you stick the needle through that loop that you create and pull tight, and then repeat just to make sure that's really nice and secured. That is all we need to do. You might come across other types of buttons that you might need to repair. So this is a common button that will be used on things like shirts and blouses. You might come across a button which has got a shank on the underside. The technique is exactly the same, but instead of going in and out of the holes on the button, we're going sideways across. So I'm just going to reuse my thread and just show you how the difference is. It's very, very similar technique. So once again, just make a knot, tie it off. I can see quite clearly where the buttons come out because it's still actually the mark of where it was. anchor my thread in again, just do a couple of stitches just to keep that secure, pulling it through, and then I'm going sideways through the shank, so I'm threading it on, and I'm just going to secure it in place like that. Oh, careful not to get it twisted around the other buttons. So you can see now it's sitting in the right place, and then from the underside I'm going through the shank of the button and then through the fabric, like so, just underneath where the shank is, and then same again through the shank on the button and then through the fabric underneath. Once again, I would just spin that thread around the underside of the button just to pull it all in, and then we're just taking the thread off. So again, put the needle in, make that loop, pick it up with your needle and pull it tight. And once more, just to make sure it's really secured, needle in, through that thread loop and pull it tight. Take it off with the snips, and that is how you tackle a button with a shank. You might have a garment where you've actually totally lost the button and you don't have a spare to put on it. That might have been because you're out and about or it popped off on the dance floor, but that is not a reason not to repair this garment. So this is an example where a couple of the buttons were missing on this cardigan, and what I've done is I've actually replaced them with a bit of a mix and match variety of buttons. And I think it's really fun, and I don't think that you should discard an item of clothing just because you can't find the right button. You can either do them like this and have a bit of a mix up, or you can just take all of them off and start again with different buttons. I think that being able to replace a button on any piece of clothing is an absolutely essential skill that everyone has, so good luck having a go.